Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome to Andre the Podcast. I'm Andre Lacey, and on today's show, we're doing something that is both reflective and necessary. We're celebrating and commemorating. This is Black History Month. And depending on who you ask, the month is either a celebration, a corporate marketing campaign, a political battleground, or a reminder that the story is still unfinished. But here's the real question I want to ask you today. Who controls the story of Black history? Think about that for a moment. And more importantly, what happens when that story gets rewritten, reduced, or removed? Let's talk about it. So the first question you might ask is, when did Black History Month start? It's a very interesting question to ask, and we're going to dive into it. Black History Month didn't start as a month. It started as Negro History Week in 1926, founded by Carter G. Woodson. Woodson believed something powerful. If a people don't know their history, they lose their footing in the present. I'll say that again. If a people don't know their history, they lose their footing in the present. He intentionally chose February because it included the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. By 1976, it became officially recognized as Black History Month nationwide. But here's the thing. It was never meant to be a containment month. It was meant to be a correction. A corrective lens, I guess you could say. Let's move on. The difference between a celebration versus a sanitization. Now let's fast forward today. Let's say we fast forward to today. We're seeing issues surrounding school curriculum debates, DEI programs being scaled back, books being challenged or removed, conversations about race being labeled as divisive. And in some states, legislation has limited how race and systematic history can be taught in classrooms. Now here's where the tension lies. Are we celebrating Black history or are we sanitizing it? That's been a big question a lot of people have been asking as of lately. Because Black history isn't just about Rosa Parks sitting down or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. having a dream. It's about redlining, mass incarceration, voting right battles, and economic disparities. When we simply simplify history, we shrink truth. Think about that. When we simplify history, we shrink truth. I don't think a lot of people think about that. And I must admit, and I don't really share my opinion very much here on this program. I'm surely and usually sticking to purely facts. But I must admit, as a journalist, I must admit that this is where I get deeply concerned. It is very, very concerning because history is not propaganda. History is documentation. Think about it. If we don't have history documented, how are we able to go back into the past to know how it's led us to where we are today? And that's history on all spectrums, not just Black history. Think about that. Now let's go into the faith perspective. Of course, many of you who have been listening from day one, or even those who may be new, I'm a very faith-driven person, and so we discuss faith on this show. Now, taking this into a deeper perspective for faith, really, as a believer, I must admit, I can't ignore something this powerful. I just can't. Because throughout Scripture, God is constantly telling his people, remember where you came from. Remember what I brought you through. Remember your identity. I'll say it again. Remember where you came from. Remember what I brought you through. Remember your identity. In many ways, history is spiritual. And when you erase a people's struggle, you weaken their identity. How many of you knew that or have ever thought about that? When you erase a people's struggle, you weaken their identity. And for Black communities especially, faith has always been tied to survival. Literally, think about it. The Black church during slavery, the civil rights movement, organizing, community building, and education. The church has always been there and at the forefront. You can't tell Black history without telling the faith story. You just can't. There's no way around it, because for Black communities especially, that's really what we've leaned on to survive. That's what we've leaned on to survive. Now, let's move on and transition to the corporate Black history and performative support. Now, let's be honest, and this is going to be hard to hear because I know that there are people who have brands and whose intentions might be pure in the moment. But after the month is over with, it's kind of like, okay, it's time to move on. So think about it. Every February, brands change their logos, corporations spotlight Black creators, and limited edition merch drops. Sound familiar? Does it sound familiar? But think about this. By March, everything is silenced. So we have to ask ourselves, is Black History Month a commitment or is it a campaign? Now, for a lot of people, it is a commitment. But for others, it might be simply a campaign, a way to show their support during the month. And then once March 1st comes, they're able to say, okay, we've shown our support. We can move on now. Think about it. Supporting Black history means investing in Black businesses year-round, funding Black education initiatives, supporting Black media voices, preserving Black archives. It's not just simply about a hashtag. It's about infrastructure. When you erase Black archives, you don't get to know what happened in the past with history. When you don't support Black media voices, you don't have people going out into communities to know what's happening in the world around you. That's not to say that other journalists who aren't people of color don't go out into communities and cover important stories, but it's not the same as having that perspective as a person of color. And of course, investing in Black businesses year round, that's really important because when we don't, they're forced to shut their doors. So think about that. Really think about that and the impact that will have not just on the present, but the future. Let's move on. The future of the story. Now, I would say this is the most important part of this conversation we're having here today. Black history is not finished. It's not. We are living in it every day. The journalists covering local and national inequities. The entrepreneurs building wealth. The pastors leading communities. The young activists organizing, digitally. The story didn't stop in 1968. It evolved. It has evolved. In many ways, we have overcome many of the obstacles that we went through during that time. But at the same time, many would argue we still have a lot of work to do and that the fight isn't over. And here's the reality. If we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell them for us. They will. And they won't always tell them fully. There are some people who suffer from guilt or who are uncomfortable when it comes to discussing Black history, Latino history, and all of the history that comes from marginalized communities. There's a level of guilt from it, and it makes some people really uncomfortable, which is why it's important for us to always tell them. Enjoying the show so far? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Alive Podcast Network for just $9.99. The QR code is right here. Now, back to the show. And that's why independent media matters. That's why podcasts matter. That's why conversations like this matter. It's true. These type of conversations are important. These type of conversations are important. I can't say it enough. Having independent media is also important. Look at the climate of media today. They're making cuts left and right. People are losing their jobs. Things are changing within the FCC. Things are changing. And some would argue in a good way, and that's true. But others would argue that not in a very good way. And that's true also. So that's why it's important to keep these conversations going amongst yourselves. And the more you keep talking about it, the more it's harder to silence all of us. And as we move through this month, I challenge you. Don't just repost quotes. I know it's easy to think if I just repost a quote from a historical Black figure, that that's enough. It's nice. Don't get me wrong, I've done it. But there is more that we can do. Even having these uncomfortable conversations. How far are we willing to go to ensure that history doesn't get erased? Even if it makes people, in some instances, uncomfortable. Read full speeches. Read them. Support local Black institutions. Ask older relatives about their lived experiences. And learn something uncomfortable. That may be the hardest part for some people to do, is to learn something that makes them uncomfortable. Hearing about the history, I must admit, sometimes it's hard for me to listen to. It is. But at the same time, I know that it's important. It's important to pass this on from generation to generation to generation so that we do know of this history. So hold stand to that. Don't let that go past and generations from now don't know what's going on. Hold on to that and keep it going. Join the conversation. Have a story idea, topic, or guest you want featured on Andre the Podcast? Send us a message. We look forward to hearing from you. And before we wrap up today's show, I want to take a moment to acknowledge something that happened this morning right before this taping. We lost a giant figure in the civil rights movement. Reverend Jesse Jackson died peacefully at the age of 84 Tuesday morning. Now, PBS is reporting that Reverend Jackson is one of the most recognizable voices for justice after Dr. King's era. A mentor, organizer, preacher, presidential candidate, and relentless advocate for the marginalized. He marched, he organized, he ran campaigns, and he spent decades pushing America towards something closer to its professed ideals of equality and opportunity. And now I'll say this. Whether you connect with him in every aspect or position or not, there's no denying his impact in civil rights, in politics, in communities, and in the hearts of people who were told that they mattered because he said they did. We all have someone in our lives, no matter how independent or secure we are as a person. We all have that someone in our lives who means the world to us, and to hear them say that you matter, or that you're doing well, or that you're going somewhere or doing something good, that we all have that one particular person or particular groups of people that we look forward to hearing that from. And for many, Reverend Jackson was that person. His passing today reminds us just how important history and those who make it really are. Let that sink in for a minute. He made history. And there are others even now who continue to make history today. So let's remember, not just the stories, but the people behind them. Because honoring Black history isn't just about nostalgia. It's about responsibility. And if history teaches us anything, it's this. The story continues, and we all play a role in how it's told. I'll say it again. The story continues, and we all play a role in how it's told. Don't forget that. Please don't forget that. If you don't remember anything else from today's show, I hope that you know that Black history and history in general, it is our responsibility to teach it and to not try to sugarcoat it or hide it or erase it. Please keep sharing. Please keep talking about it. And that's Andre the Podcast. I'm Andre Lacey. God bless you. Be encouraged. And let's keep talking.